Can you tell us what the national public health strategy is at the moment? Because Gladys Berejiklian said this morning that COVID zero is no longer realistic. That's not what Daniel Andrews and Andrew Barr and Mark McGowan are saying. So have we moved past a national approach, or can you articulate what it is? And also, in relation to Doherty, which you're mentioning frequently, other state leaders are mentioning frequently, that 70% reopening threshold. Is that actually a realistic scenario to put before people? Because my understanding of that Doherty work is that they didn't envisage hundreds of active infections at the time we hit 70%. So the question is...
...of infections at the time, and they're constantly updating their advice to us. But there's no change to the 70% threshold that has been set for the national plan, or indeed the 80% threshold. And as has been remarked upon by many commentators, and I have, and Greg Haggart has as well, it's not 70% and nothing else is going on. I mean, you still have to be managing the COVID in the community at 70%, and indeed at 80%. It just means that you don't, particularly at 80%, have to have lockdowns to do that. There are other ways of managing things at that level, which means that you don't have to have those lockdowns, because they're terribly impactful on the community, people's mental health, and obviously on the economy. Welcome those unemployment figures today, but we're looking to next month and next month's figures, and obviously that will reflect more of the lockdowns that we've seen. But what I am pleased about is that the COVID disaster payments, which are now at over $3 billion, has been paid out to some 1.5 million Australians. They're proving to be very effective, very, very effective. And so they will continue to support people through the lockdowns. Now, when it comes to the issue of COVID zero, I think often people are referring to different things, and either how they're hearing it or how even perhaps it's being spoken of. COVID zero, i.e. there is no COVID in Australia. There's no COVID in quarantine, there's no cases in isolation, there's just zero COVID in Australia. That has never been Australia's goal, ever. And I don't believe, and I'm assuming that's not what premiers are referring to when they say COVID zero. What we're seeking to achieve is cases minimised as far as possible, preferably to zero, that are infectious in the community. That's what we'd like to achieve, and we have to act in accordance with that. Now, I think the Premier is being very realistic about what the opportunity to do that now in New South Wales is, given the status of the serious Delta outbreak that we're seeing there, and whether that can be achieved in Victoria with the cases we're seeing now and the extension of lockdown, well, time will tell. But the import of the suppression strategy is you must keep suppressing. You must keep suppressing. The lockdown in Sydney has to work for it to be lifted. It has to work. Suppression cannot be dispensed with for vaccination when you have the vaccination levels we have now. And so that has always been the case. There's no change to it. That is hopefully a very clear and cogent explanation of what it is. Suppress and vaccinate. Drive the cases as low as you possibly can that are infectious in the community, because the stronger we go into phase B at 70%, the better off the whole country is.